Good morning. It's a bright morning. It's the 17th of November 2023 here in rural Ireland. And this is about the pylons. And all these videos on the pylons will start with the word pylons. It might be pylons there, but it'll always be pylons. So anyone searching can get straight to the video in question. Now, straight away, this is not going to interest a lot of my viewers. Sorry for using that word. A lot of my viewers, not going to interest them. And please turn off. If you're not into it, please turn off. But this affects some people greatly, and a big part of my campaigning over the years has been in connection with this sort of electrical and gas, but mostly electrical infrastructure in Ireland, and the tremendous havoc that has been wrought on our environment and will be wrought unless it's stopped. Now, what we're seeing here is that Germany led the EU, and Germany went all for this, but they lied because they were relying on cheap Russian gas. And when that was hit and cut back drastically, the German economy is on its knees. BASF, I remember years ago I had a stereo player in my car, and that was the make of the tapes. And they were a big chemical company. They were so big that during the war, the Allies couldn't bomb it all. The site was so big. A big chunk of that is now gone to China. China has overtaken Europe in the manufacture of cars, electric cars in particular. They've captured that whole market, and they're producing a better product than anything European or American car makers can make, and they're challenging that. Whether the electric cars last, there will be some of them going forward. There's no doubt there'll be some. Now, the thing about it is that Germany exported this mad thing to try and create cohesion. They're always afraid of Ireland leaving the EU. The British left it to their amazement, and they want to interconnect everything with wires, and wires everywhere. They want wires everywhere because they control that then, and all of that. Now, the point about it is, I want to just show you now a map of Ireland, roughly drawn. Oh, it's very, very bad. I won't get any prize, but Ireland looks like a teddy bear. And now I'm going to pause the camera and put in the various things in it, so that somebody who's not familiar with this can become familiar with it very quick. Okay, so Ireland, this is the map, and now I put in the east-west interconnector from Wales in the United Kingdom, coming in here to close to Trim in County Meath, and it then goes north and it comes over here near Moy in County Tyrone. Just after going through Armagh, it's only partly into Moy, right? Now, the interconnector was proposed about 2008, and there was a lot of kick up about it, and it was just a government plan as such, but the next thing all went quiet, but what nobody seems to know, only myself, is that the EU brought out a regulation. Now, there's a difference in a regulation and a directive. A regulation takes place immediately, and we'll be dealing with that regulation in detail in another video. But this put it on an EU scale, and on that regulation was, and I'll pause here. So you see another line added here, and that is to connect wind energy in County Donegal and Sligo and Fermanagh in the northwest of Ireland into the North South Interconnector. Right now, that was all that was most of what was on that regulation, and the government here had to provide a detailed plan of it, and they did. And I challenged these things in the court in Dublin, and nobody disagreed that this is the situation. Now, the next thing I'm going to do for the uninformed is draw in the border with Northern Ireland. Okay, so here roughly you see the border of Northern Ireland here, going along here, and you see the way it cuts across the line of the interconnector. So essentially now I'm going to draw in the counties now that are affected. So on a larger scale, you have Tyrone up here. It's just going into it. You have Armagh here. You have Monaghan here, Monaghan here, you have Louth here, you have Cavan, and you have Meath. So if you see it here, it's going from, I'm going to draw it now, you can just see that now, that the counties affected, right? Meath, Cavan, Monaghan, Armagh and Tyrone, that's 5. Louth is not affected, okay? Now, so now, if you look at that again, I'm going to draw the thing again on it, see that there? Now I'm going to draw the interconnector. This. So here we have the interconnector superimposed. Here is the overall map, and here's the interconnector superimposed. Okay, so now you have the interconnector on it, right? Now the next thing is to show you where I roughly am. So if you look here on this, you can see the little dot here would represent my farm where I was reared and that, and we're slightly to the east of the North South Interconnector, and it's around about 0.7 of a mile, but it's about a kilometre and a little bit from it, and it's out of view. So it doesn't impact me absolutely directly in the way it would in other cases. In some cases, it's running across between houses and the farm buildings attached to the houses. It's that close. It's coming very close to some homes, big time. Okay, and so that's the general run of it. Now the next thing is, when the kick up was in 2010 and all of that, the first thing, of course, most people do is they form a group. Now it must be remembered, and this is highly important to understand as far as I'm concerned, I am effective in intervening in wrongdoing, quite effective in that, and I do a lot of that. But I have been active with groups of people all over Ireland, and so I'm going to circle some of the counties which I have been directly connected to and have travelled to a lot of them, and we're going to go through them. One is Donegal. I've had meetings and things with people in Donegal, in Donegal, in northwest of Ireland. I've had meetings with people in Tyrone and travelled down there and was treated very well down there. Some people from Antrim came, but I never actually went as far as Antrim, although I've met people who have the problem in Antrim, right? Of course, Cavan, at least involved in 3 different things there, so I circled Cavan. And that includes the Pylons with the wind farms, right? Now, Louth, only one proposed wind farm in Louth, and it didn't go ahead, so I have been in touch, but not in a big way. Meath in a huge way. The Emlock wind farm, the North Kildare wind farm, the Beliver proposed wind farm, the Delvin proposed wind farm, big play in there, and of course the North South Interconnector, which runs from Meath, Cavan and Monaghan in the state, and Armagh and Tyrone in Northern Ireland. So there's a few there. The next one is Leitrim. Yes, I've been involved with people there. I've been involved with people in Roscommon, big time. In fact, we had a big meeting in Roscommon. Westmeath, big time. I've blocked a wind farm there. Offaly, Laois, big time, really big. I got one on my own before there was any of this. I got a wind farm in Offaly stopped, completely stopped. It was on the news, and I was actually interviewed on the radio about it. That before RTE realised they weren't dealing with a cod. So I had one stopped in Offaly. So now there's a big heave in Offaly. They're full of them in Offaly. Now Kildare, the North Kildare wind farm, I was instrumental in advising the group there, and we blocked it. We blocked it with the SCA directive, simple as that. Now, Laois, great group down there. They don't need much help from me, but anything I can give, and they're great to help, and we work very closely together. The North Kildare wind farm, I've said that, so I'll circle those now and get them out of the way. Wicklow is the Wild West, the Garden of Ireland. It came under severe attack. They got them blocked on the right to go on the roads and various other things. But yeah, they're fighting them there big time too. Wicklow are good people, and I was involved in that. And Wexford, big time. We used to have some of them coming to meetings. We'd go to meetings in Naas. I must have went to 50 meetings in Naas. I mean, it's a fair journey. So Waterford, yeah, great group of Waterford. We got involved there with them, and they're big. They're under attack too. Cork. Now the Cork people can do their own thing, but way back about 2016, maybe a little earlier, myself and a local man here drove down to Cork, and we met the solicitor down there who has had great success, and we told him and mentioned about the SEA directive. Whether he knew it already, I think maybe he did, but the point about it is we had touch base there, as to say, and we made sure that he was aware of this, and he got one blocked in Wexford with it, and he got one blocked in Gugambara. So we have an input there. I have an input there. So we'll fence off Cork. Big time in Kerry. Big time. Went down there and was treated very well and stayed over a weekend, giving them the advice. Big time in Kerry. Limerick. I have a contact in Limerick, and not much to do. We didn't do much there, but a good man. Now Tipperary's not on it, although I had a man do inquiries for me down there. We had connections. Clare was big in the beginning. I haven't heard much of them in the last while. Galway, yeah, in the beginning I was involved with them, although they kind of went on and did their own thing. Mayo, great group in around Killala there in Mayo, and there's Pylons there, and they got the Pylons blocked there. Now I had a somewhat role in that. So I went through them all there. Now, about 2011, a meeting was called. A meeting was called for the whole of Ireland, and I thought that we'd form an All Ireland Association, but other people had different ideas. Now, whether by accident or design, when I proposed the All Ireland organisation and the collection of funds to tackle it with the European law, I was shot down. And I got the impression that these people had been working with politicians who had promised them they'd get them fixed up. And actually, when I went to campaign outside of this group, I received calls from members of the group to stop, that it would be dealt with by politicians. And in the last 2 years, several people on the route of the North South Interconnector have told me it'll be fixed with the politicians. Okay, and I was at NEP meetings, North East Pylon pressure group meetings, where they poured praise on Damien in English. They said he was going to do it and they'd vote for him. He doesn't even go to the meetings anymore. Now, I have enough said on that, but a very, very important point I want to make, and that is that now, after you deal with a lot of groups, you begin to see a pattern emerging, and this is roughly right, not quite right. Out of every 10 groups, there'll be five who really don't have the interest in stopping it. And they may not have the money, there may be all kinds of things, they're just not up to this. Some of them will be connected with politicians. There'll be politicians at the top table, and they are no use whatsoever. They can do nothing at all. Because people are used to getting politicians to swing planning decisions and things, because it's the council that runs the planning. But it doesn't work in the case of energy. Now, the next thing is, you'll have 5 anyway that won't do much. You'll have 2 that want this. I was at 2 separate meetings where people who were opposing the wind farms, one was in Kells, and they were opposing the wind farms, and they told me, I said this is the whole thing is a scam, and they started to cry. There's my daughter, she's 16. Have you nothing to tell her, only that there was no future? This is the stuff you get. So once you hear that, let them off, forget about them. I get this in the pubs and everywhere I go, you're anti-progress and all of this. This is what you get. And we have to have some future. There has to be a way of making all this electricity and running our whole economy from the weather. This is what they tell me. Now, that's it. So we have 5 and 2 is 7. And then we have there's 1 out of the 10 who just won't have the money. They just won't have the money. And that happened in one group where I spent 2 weeks doing up their legal documents, a terrible job, trying to help them, and got it all right and had it with the barrister, but it was 40,000 euros with VAT, and they couldn't just come up with it. And I have great sympathy there, because these people had young families, some of them were just motor mechanics, and I say just, but they wouldn't have a big regular income like a lot of people would. And so those people I have great sympathy for. Now, however, you just do your best and hope for the best, but they're not going to be much addition either. Now that leaves me the other 2 out of 10, 20%. And of them 2%, they will have the money, And so half of them will want to challenge it on all kinds of issues like ditches, hedges, rivers, all of that. And if there is a special area of conservation, they can sometimes win on that if you have it. But they're not that plentiful. And what if you don't have a special area of conservation? Then it's Wild West. And that is the problem. So if they fit into this category, I can give them a bit of advice on the environmental impact assessment. I can explain to them what the law is and how it works, so that and how to get the right legal team and all of this. But some of these will not go in on the SCA, and it is probably because they want this stuff but they don't want it in their area. So we see we have roughly 9 counted out, and then there's the 1. You see it here, that 2 is divided in 2. And they're the ones that will go in to win. They'll go in like terrier dogs to win. Okay, so now it must be said about all of them in the 9. Then all of the 9, those are the ones who will not go in viciously. They will make a good effort to stop at the planning stage, but as I say, unless they have something in particular, they may or they may not work it. In the case of the Emlock wind farm, it was refused. 87 turbines were refused, and in that case the people were against it. There was a good chance that the SEA would have been pulled in a judicial review, that it have had one. Certainly there were people up there who were well prepared to use the SEA directive, and taking all of that and political influence and the population and all that, they didn't go ahead with that wind farm. They granted the one just south of it in North Kildare, and we hit them with the SEA and we won there, we stopped it. Now, however, do you get the point? It's not the case that these 5 here will do nothing, but they will rely on the planning authorities, and if the planning authorities grant it, it's all over really. Now, you see these 2 here, so I put that 2 out of 10 here in this. I've made a smaller version of it. So this is the 2 out of 10 group, and off that you'll have 1 that will go with the SEA, and they'll have the money, or they'll collect the money, or they'll get the money, and sometimes some of them will have money, or there'll be people living there who have the money, and my job is to make absolutely sure that where the money is, it's directed exactly where it will do the job. Okay, so the next thing then is you have the other, who will go other ways. And this is the general view of the North East Pylon Pressure Group and the people living along the North South Interconnector that I've just showed you. These people wanted, they love the wind farms with dear passionate love, and they want the pylons, but they want the pylons underground. This is their cry. Now, straight away you can see that they're not boxing in the match with their 2 hands. They have 1 hand tied behind their back. And they were big into the politicians. This was remarked. And that's the situation. What I go for is this group here. So a group is either in this category. They're either going to tackle it on the SEA shortfall or they're not. Now, the first thing that's going to come to your head, folks, as I sign off on this video is, why do you bother your head? You have all these other ones here, and you have these small amount. Why don't you just deal with them? The answer is I do. I have all of those lined up. We have the ducks all lined up to attack both EirGrid and the wind farms and the government and the Borplanora and all of that. But why not let the pylons go ahead? Well, for one thing, they are a bit close to me, but they're not just exactly close to me. But there are a small number of people in along the pylons from all counties who are genuinely really upset with this. As someone beside me, an ordinary man who'd be kind of a Fianna Fáil supporter, said there'll be blood spilled over this yet. Some people are going to lose their rag. These are very responsible, quiet people. You wouldn't see them in a pub. You might see them at a funeral and things like that, but they don't mix that well. They're just hard workers, and they run their family and do all that sort of thing. Some of them are married to people from abroad and all that. You wouldn't know they live beside you, a lot of them. But this has really fired them up. And in some cases, they're practically going over their house. So when that happens, you have severe upset, and you'll see it on the television there, various people, without mentioning anybody. The other thing is, there are about 15 families along this who are on my side and who fully agree with what I have to say. And all I can do with any group is steer them in the right direction. I am doing this with people who have problems with legal problems, titles and all this, and fixing these things out. And in most cases, it's all as a result of the thing not being done correctly in the beginning. If you don't start right, you don't finish right. Might be somebody who's losing part of their garden because it wasn't mapped right, and I have to try and help them with that. It might be somebody who is there's a club or something, and or maybe something to do with a project to build something, and there's a few people involved, and the one fella wants to take over building it, and he wants to have the diggers in there, and he wants to make all, and everyone else is pushed aside, and I have to kind of deal with that. So you have to keep them on the right track. We do it in our own lives. You have to do it in some cases, and the law is the guideline. If the law is not on your side, then you are in trouble. And in some cases you get lawyers, crooked auctioneers and all of that, and they can cause somebody to lose something that they own. And there's all kinds of very tricky law on that, which I understand upside down. Not only could I read you the law front to back, I can read it back to front. And I prove that sometimes in defining some legal terms backways. So I have a good head for that, and I don't want to waste that head. I'm not bragging about it, but I will use the talents I have to attack my enemies. I will use them to attack my enemies viciously. Now the thing, so I've made this kind of clear about the situation now. I always help the ones that want to help themselves, particularly where they go with the SCA directive and that, and European law. But there'll always be, in a big group like the North South Interconnector, there'll always be a few people who are in this group, but the group itself is in this group. And how you handle that is a matter I will deal with in the next video. Now I hope I've made this clear, and again I hope people that are not interested in this didn't look at it, right? Didn't waste their time with it. But this is hugely topical, and I want to be able to say, you check these videos out on YouTube and Rumble. Okay, folks, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And some people don't like the way I'm so determined. I mean, I either do a job or I don't. If I get dug into something, I'll see it through. No matter, no fear whatsoever. Just dig into it. And I've been doing that all my life. And it's worked real well. So we'll see you back soon. Thank you.